Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Vermel here with the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for September 18th, 2019, recorded around 2:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hurricane Humberto has continued to intensify, is now a major hurricane on its final approach now, on its closest approach into Bermuda here. The core is expected to miss Bermuda, but strong winds to hurricane force are expected across Bermuda during the day today and into the overnight hours. And you can go to this is the 3-day forecast from the National Hurricane Center. You can see this is the extent of the tropical storm force winds here in sort of this gold region, and the hurricane force winds here in that red region, with a hurricane warning for all of Bermuda at this point in time. And you can see why. On its closest approach, we will have sustained hurricane force winds across Bermuda, and this will pose a significant threat to anything that is not tied down any loose items. So please, if you haven't already, finish your final preparations immediately, because hurricane conditions will be occurring here within the next few hours and really maintaining itself throughout the night tonight. And then by the time we get into tomorrow morning, this will begin to sort of move quicker away from Bermuda, and then eventually impacts will be less and less as we get through tomorrow afternoon. The worst of conditions should be over by tomorrow morning as this storm system continues to head off towards the north and east, and then eventually by the night tomorrow, tropical storm force winds will have cleared Bermuda here, leaving just some gusty remaining winds for portions of those islands there. If you go look at the recon pass here, we see 952 millibars sustained here, so this is pretty much now no longer strengthening. The strengthening process does seem to be halted as of now, and that would coincide with some of the cooler sea surface temperatures across this region. Just not a lot of overall favorability right now for continued strengthening, so that is really one good thing. We do have a rather broad wind field as well, and that has limited a lot of the significant strengthening. You can see almost in the convection-free zones, we have even hurricane force winds sustained. So this tells me that this is a very broad storm system overall. It is not well-defined in terms of a radius of maximum wind. You can see we found, or the recon has found winds to near Category 3 strength pretty far away from the center, which is right here. So this is still a Category 3 hurricane and is expected to remain so for only the next few hours, and then eventually this will continue to gradually weaken here, 120 miles an hour right now, moving east-northeast at about 16 miles per hour. So you can also see here, one other thing to note is now we're starting to see the outflow really get kind of cut off here from any westerly outflow. Now it's pretty much all evected off towards the north in this kind of convective string here. So that is kind of just an interesting note here. You can also see a little bit sort of this trailing band of convection that's loosely associated with some of the stringing out of the vorticity of Hurricane Humberto here. And continuing on here, looking at Tropical Storm Jerry, this really had a big flare-up of convection overnight. You can sort of see some of that here. We go to the very last frame here, or the very beginning of this. You can see a lot of this convection was from a overnight pulse that sustained itself into this afternoon, and we're getting a new one underway here. A really deep convective burst occurring right around the center, the low-level center of Jerry here, not Humberto. This is Jerry. And this is going to continue to pose a lot of questions as to where exactly the track and intensity of this is going to be here. We go to the true color, we can get there, there we go. This is the wider view of the satellite here, the visible satellite. And you can see, one thing to note though, there is some dry air around the system. When we take a look at some of the recon passes from NOAA 49 here, the upper level sondes, this is maybe about 40 nautical miles away from the center here, and you can see there is a lot of low level moisture, but the higher up you go, the moisture is very limited, and that's going to be a problem here if Jerry really wants to start intensifying rapidly. And we saw this thing with Dorian as well, that there was just a lot of dry air around this region. There's not just a lot of favorability out in this region, and shear will also be increasing as this starts to head more off towards the north and west here. So a lot to kind of watch with Jerry. In the meantime, though, it is sort of developing a pretty nice banded look to it. sort of this or backward C shape or S shape, if you will, and this has led to strengthening throughout the day. The official National Hurricane Center forecast has this about 50 miles an hour right now, but if we go to the Dvorak intensities, this is coming from the CMS website here, we can see this is almost near hurricane strength according to that at 61 knots according to the Dvorak intensities, and the center here would be located right in about here. We may have seen a slight center reformation today further towards the south here, and that is going to be interesting to see. That will affect the track here. And speaking of track, the one important thing to note here is that we could, if this does intensify quicker, this track would also go further south. And the reason behind that is there's an upper level low and upper level ridging here that is caused by Humberto as it continues away from Bermuda. As it does so, that is building this ridge further and further off to here, but it is only filling up at the higher elevations, the higher altitudes. So a stronger storm would be more affected towards the south here. So that's going to be one thing to watch, that if this does intensify to become a hurricane rather quickly here, this is expected to be a hurricane by tomorrow evening, excuse me. But if this does become a hurricane much quicker than expected, and it certainly could, given its current intensity and given the fact the rate of increase, this cone could shift a little further south. Regardless, here you go to the 3-day official forecast. We could see watches start to be issued for portions of the northern Leeward Islands tonight by early this afternoon or evening by the 11 o'clock or 5 o'clock advisories tonight or this evening. We could see watches start to be hoisted for those regions. So that's going to be something to keep in mind here, and I'll have another video update this evening by the 5 o'clock advisory, sort of touching on all of that. If you look at the close-in shot here, this is from the NOAA RAMMB website here. You can definitely see, we can shift that over just a tad bit here. You can sort of see that we're starting to get more of that that classic S shape to it here. Definitely with this big convective burst going on right around the center, it is going to be something to kind of keep in mind here as we go through the next couple of days. Also to kind of keep in mind is that the fact that we do have 2 other disturbances here in the Atlantic that we're continuing to monitor. This one with a 30% chance, and this one with a 20% or a 10% chance here over the next couple of days. So it's going to be really important to kind of see exactly what happens with regards to how strong Jerry is and how far south or how far north does it go within that short-term range. Milda, also, we'll get to that here really quickly. This is expected to produce a significant heavy rainfall for portions of southern Texas into extreme southwestern Louisiana, and upwards of about 10 inches of rain are possible across this region. We've seen potentially as much as 20 inches immediately along the coastal regions here where this thing made landfall. So again, rainfall can and has killed people in the past, so just be aware that this is a very life-threatening heavy rainfall situation setting up here for what is now tropical depression Milda, as this continues to head off towards the north here over the next couple of days. So a lot to watch here. Again, I will have another video update out by the 5 o'clock advisory going over everything related to Jerry and Humberto and Milda and what to expect here over the next couple of days. That's me from me right now. Hope you all stay safe and have a great rest of your day, and I'll be back at the 5 o'clock advisory.